this is one of the many angel teachings over time angels have spoken about. There's no one set future. So even though I've been shown that we choose to come down to learn certain things in life, we don't choose everything. There's always free will choice in everything. I like to call it a to-do list. Angels have said they always have to have free will in them. So we more say, okay, we're going to come down and do, ABC as a to-do list in a lifetime, and it's okay. If we choose to do something different in a lifetime, that's okay too. We just don't do it. We don't cross it off our to-do list, and then the next life we can do it if we choose to.
Today, I'm really excited to welcome Nadine Telishewsky to the show. Nadine, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. How is this day treating you?
Thank you so much, Christina, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And yes, this day is going wonderful. Thanks so much.
Awesome. So I've seen you on a couple of podcasts, and I just love everything that you have to share. So I am super excited to dive into all the various parts of your stories, including talking to angels since you were 13 and your near-death experience. So how about we just get started with you talking about your journey, however that, feels, whatever feels the most alive for you right now.
Sure. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I'll just give a very quick background first. So for myself, I was actually leaving my body multiple times, starting at 6 years old from childhood trauma. And then when I was 13, I started to have angel visits. And they would come into my dreams at night occasionally, and all of a sudden everything would become very vivid and real, and I would have my whole cognitive mind back, and they wanted me to follow them, and I did. And we'd go astral traveling. They showed me quite a few different things. I saw many of my past lives. They showed me some premonitions of the future. At one point, I also snuck into heaven, which is another story. And I was able to gain some higher knowledge, which is the reason that I went there. And they showed me just 5 out of the many thousands of meanings of life, of how we can all see each other as one and start to strive towards world peace together. I had those angel experiences up to and including age 19. And then at age 24 in 2004 is when I had my NDE. I actually had 5 premonitions before my NDE, so I'll just mention them really quickly.
You mentioned that the angels showed you some things from the future. Was the premonitions that you had leading into your NDE, was that from the angels?
No, actually. So the 2 main premonitions that I received, one is about how more destructive global warming and natural disasters will become in the future. And that still hasn't happened yet, so that's still something at a future stage. And another premonition they gave me was, they showed me starting in 2020 that there would be a minimum of 17 worldwide events that would happen, and each one would be a potential for us as humanity to all go through a universal problem together, so to speak, to help us all see each other as one people and come towards overcoming something as one people and coming towards world peace together. So I had that premonition in 1999, and I had understood that those events would start minimum 21 years later, and 21 years later is 2020. And we had COVID, which was a worldwide issue that happened. So yes, that was that second main premonition.
Right. I was just curious if the premonitions that they showed you were the same ones that you had
Mm.
leading into your NDE. So that's where you
Oh,
were
yeah, that's
going.
separate.
Yeah, that's where you were going with the premonitions you had leading into your NDE. So
Yeah,
I'm curious about that part of your story and your journey with that.
sure. So the five premonitions, or I like to call them, um, is about 6 months before my NDE. I started to become more and more afraid for some reason of um, pretty much everything I was drinking and eating more and more, and I had no idea why this was. And 3 months before my NDE, I had this very vivid dream. And in it, I was in some unknown location. I was with my best friend at the time. I was holding a mixed drink, and at one point, I just collapsed. I had a heart attack and I died in it. And I woke up and I thought, okay, that was very realistic for some reason. Um, but I didn't realize at the time that was an actual premonition of what was going to happen, and it wasn't just a dream. A week before my NDE, I received this invitation to go to a New Year's Eve house party of a male coworker I didn't really know well at the time. And as soon as I received the invitation, I had this feeling that something bad was going to happen there, but I wasn't sure what. And then the night before the NDE, I had two dreams of significance. In one, I dreamt that there was this man that I was going to meet, and I got to see all the exact details of what he looked like. And the next day at the party, a man walked in looking exactly like it, so I had a premonition about him. And the other dream I had was actually another astral travel with angels. They suddenly grabbed my hand. We flew across the universe very quickly into some very strange looking building in the ethereal realm. And they were essentially showing me what my job was going to be in the afterlife. And I got to see that I was going to be a guide for several people that were still living on Earth at the time. So it meant a lot to me to see that I was going to, be a guide one day. So those were the premonitions that I had before my NDE.
Mhm. And so how long, you said that was 6 months before your NDE that you were getting those premonitions?
Mm, yes, yes. The first one of them started about 6 months before. So altogether, they were anywhere from a day to 6 months before.
Wow. And so what happened with your NDE?
Yes, yes. So on New Year's Eve in 2004, I went to that New Year's Eve house party of that male coworker. I went with my best friend at the time, and I'll go through this next part very quickly so that we can actually get to the part where I actually had my NDE. But my friend and I go to the party. We each made these mixed drinks. I only sipped on two mixed drinks slowly over the next 2 hours, so I wasn't drunk at all. And most of the time, my drinks and all my belongings were in one room of the house. And most of the time, I was in other rooms, just chatting, dancing, things like that. So I often wasn't around it. In any case, the short version is over the 2 hours, I started to feel more and more confused and out of it. And I didn't realize that somebody had put a date rape drug into my drink. So by the end of the 2 hours, I felt really high, and all of a sudden my legs collapsed out underneath me and I started to become more paralyzed. I had realized what must have happened, and I told my friend. And shortly before I completely passed out, I just remember yelling out in my head, "God, please help me," before I completely passed out. Afterwards, I had all these other symptoms that happened. They called 911, and all I know from my perspective is I ended up in a hospital 6 hours later, and the doctor had told me that I had had a drug overdose, and I had had a massive heart attack from it while I was being wheeled in to the hospital. So the hospital staff really didn't treat me well at all and weren't listening to me of what had happened. And as soon as I was able to more just get up and hold on to a wall just to go use the washroom, they discharged me. I had a prescription for potassium that they gave me because they said I needed to regulate my heart for the next while after I had just had a massive heart attack. So I went home, but I lived by myself and I felt absolutely horrible. So I just laid in bed all day. And by the time it was now the next day, New Year's Day in the evening, I felt uh, freezing. I was shaking, even though I was underneath all my blankets. I felt I didn't have any energy at all. I was so weak. I felt so confused, and my heart was going crazy. It kept going so fast, and then it would go really slow, and it kept going back and forth. And all of a sudden, it just stopped. And the moment it stopped, I popped out of my body. And as soon as I popped out of my body, I knew what had happened. And I barely even wanted to look at my body. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, oh my God, I am free. This is amazing. Because I no longer felt sick. I no longer felt in pain. I felt just in complete peace. My mind was also completely different. At that point, I already felt like I had almost completely become my higher self, I guess, with my higher mind and higher emotions. It was just a complete peace. I wasn't worried about anything. And I knew that I just needed to fly straight up because I knew where heaven was. And I thought, okay, that's great. I'm going there. So I just started to fly straight up. And shortly after, all of a sudden, everything went completely black just for a few seconds. But it didn't feel scary at all. And then it lifted. And when it lifted, I was over this beautiful valley with flowers, grass everywhere, and I saw mountains in the background, and it was just so beautiful. And the energies and the colors, some I've never seen before, were coming off of everything, and it was so wonderful to be there and see that. And all of a sudden, I noticed that there was something beside me, and I looked to my right, and there was a hundreds of feet tall, almost creature-like being, and he was made out of pitch black smoke. But he wasn't a dark being at all. He was this beautiful, unconditionally loving, very high vibrational angel. And it was actually the angel of death. I just knew that over there as part of more just having access to universal knowledge. This was the angel of death. And he was wearing, I understood, just a costume or a shell of that pitch black smoke, and he even had giant wings. But when he looked at me, there was the brightest light and unconditional love just beaming out of his eyes and nose and mouth and ears. And I could see that and feel that. And I realized what had happened was when everything went dark just for a few seconds is because he had scooped me up in his giant wing and had helped me to get to the right place I needed to go, to get to heaven. So when I realized that, I thanked him, and it was all telepathic, which also was completely normal for me because after my experiences in my youth, every time I was with angels, it was telepathic, and it was just completely normal to do that. So I thanked him for helping me, and he said, "We're pleased for you to be back home." And then I saw him fly to the side of one of the mountains, and he was just scanning over everything. And I understood he was just overseeing everyone who was transitioning on for that day. At that point, then I suddenly saw this very bright white light just beam down from above near me. So I flew into it, and the moment I went into it, it was just pure, unconditional love. And it just not only encompassed me, but just embedded fabric of my being and was just vibrating with unconditional love and acceptance. And I knew this light was coming from God, and it was coming from somewhere up high in a higher realm of heaven. And I was so thankful to just be experiencing this love again, which is not anything like I've ever experienced down here on earth before. And I knew that I was home once again. That's just exactly what it felt like. I was home, and I was just so happy to be home. At that point, a more average size angel came along and went into the light beam just right above me and had greeted me and had let me know that, yes, it was my ideal time to transition on, and soon I would be continuing to go up to heaven. And I was very excited about all this. And the angel then motioned to his side, which was to my left side, and I looked over there, and I had my life review then. And I relived my entire life over again, not only from my perspective, though, it was from every single other perspective that I've ever interacted with in life at the exact same time. And I got to understand everyone's thoughts and feelings, and why they made certain decisions, and everything else at the same time as I was reliving everything from my life. So it was very profound to see that. And I wasn't judged for anything at all whatsoever. And I wasn't commended for anything either. Everything was just completely accepted and just was. And it was wonderful to see that. The only thing is, there only the times that I noticed in life, whenever I was kind to others, it almost felt just a little bit highlighted in a way. So I felt that even though everything is just completely accepted and nothing's judged, one of the only things that matters in life is just how kind we are to each other.
So I want to highlight something that I heard you say, and there's so many parts of your story that are just so fascinating, but when you were having your life review, you said that you weren't judged for anything, but you also weren't commended for anything. And that to me just felt like the words that I think you used that followed were, you were just completely accepted. And the kindness, it's like, I don't know, I just felt more space when you shared that. Like, oh, right. It's not like we get a pat on the back or an attaboy for doing good things, but that it just feels better. There's a highlight to it when you're kind. So I wanted to pause on that, because I think that a lot of us in this earth reality, we tend to do good things for a reward or something in return, and really it's just the highlights.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yes. Exactly. That is how I felt it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I can feel it as you're sharing it, like as if I was there with you. So thank you for telling such a good story of your recollection.
Thank you.
So the life review. So
yes.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Yes, perfect. Okay, no problem. Sure. Yes. So after my life review, I then looked and I saw this gigantic energetic light spiral, almost like a funnel, like a tornado, so to speak, but it wasn't moving, it was stagnant, so to speak, that I saw as a giant spiral going all the way really far down. And I saw that that was attached underneath my life review, because all my previous almost 100 human lives I have had so far were all there, all in order down the cyclone. Is the best I can explain it. So they gave me the option if I wanted to review all my other previous lives, but because in my youth I had already been shown some of my past lives, I passed it up and said, no, that's okay, I don't need to review the other ones right now. So the angel said okay, and then I started to follow him up into the light again, because that's what he had wanted me to do. So at that point, I wanted nothing more than to just be in that light and that love, and just be following the angel up into the light. when all of a sudden something caught my eye that was below and to the right of me. So I looked down at it to see what it was, and I noticed that it seemed to be all these flashes of the futures of many different people. Some were happy things, some were neutral things, but many things were very sad or traumatic that I saw were going to happen to many people. So it made me stop in my tracks, and I felt just a lot of sadness and hurt in that moment. I felt a lot of compassion for them. So that's why I had stopped, and the angel stopped as well. And I understood he was just really waiting for me to process what I was seeing so that I can continue following him up. Instead, I asked him, would all of these negative events still happen if I hadn't have died right now? And the angel said, what you see is simply the future that is currently set to be. Yet any possible change could conceivably change what is yet to come. So I asked, is it possible then for me to possibly go back and change some of these negative events from taking place? And the angel said, we must warn you that there's a possibility you may not succeed in stopping any negative event or even changing anything for their betterment, but we'll leave the decision up to you if you wish to return to Earth or not. And I said, okay, well, even knowing that I may not be able to change anything, I at least have to try. And at that point, the angel looked almost a little concerned. And I understood at that point that I would be changing things for myself, because I had chosen that this was my ideal time to transition on. I was only supposed to live for 24 years and then pass on at this point. They had already showed me what my job was going to be in the afterlife I was supposed to start. And I had already previously been shown what life I was going to reincarnate into next. And I was going to grow up as a female in Spain. So if I chose to come back into this body and continue this life, I would have been changing that whole path originally. However, I still at that point was intent on coming back. So since we have complete free will, I was able to choose that. And the angel said, okay. And it seemed like he just waved his arm. And with him doing that, it just released me from the light, so to speak. And I went crashing so hard and fast and landed straight into my body, back in bed in my apartment where I was feeling so sick and so weak and so horrible, and my heart still starting to go crazy again. And when I was back in my body, I no longer saw the angel, but I distinctly heard his voice. And he told me, your mother is about to phone you. You must turn over and answer your phone if you're going to survive. And a matter of seconds later, my phone starts ringing. And it took all my energy just to turn over in bed. And I picked it up. And it was my mother. And she had just heard that I'd been in the hospital the night before and asked me if I needed anything. And I said, yes, I really don't feel well. And I have this prescription for potassium and I really need it. So she came over and got me the prescription for potassium. And I took it, and at least that completely regulated my heart, which is what I needed. So yes, I will stop there. That's the end of my NDE experience.
Wow, that is so beautiful. It's so fascinating. And what I guess is standing out the most is, because I was curious the whole time that you were talking, I was curious, like, well, if they said you can go to the light, and they didn't say it's not your time, because I've interviewed quite a few near-death experiencers, and they always get like, it's not your time, it's not your time. And
Yeah.
so I love that you were shown,
Yeah.
or it caught your eye, And it was what the angel said that really, really stood out to me, that, and I don't know if I'm going to say it exactly how you did, but I would love to, I guess, dissect this concept deeper, that
Mhm.
this is what's going to happen. This is what can happen based on the frequency that is existing right now. And
Mm.
as things continue, frequencies can change, but right now, this is how it will unfold. And
Mm.
I would love it if you could elaborate on, you know, your thoughts about that, or what that felt like when the angel shared that with you.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Thank you. So this is one of the many angel teachings over time. Angels have spoken about there's no one set future. So even though I've been shown that we choose to come down to learn certain things in life, we don't choose everything. We choose, like had, I'd found out I had chosen my family, and I had chosen certain things that I was going to experience in my life, and I chose when I was going to ideally more transition on, even though there's times we have some options to transition on as well. So there's always free will choice in everything. And I was shown even when we come down and we make contracts, they call it, it's not even like a contract. I like to call it a to-do list. That's exactly how I see their contracts, because angels have said they always have to have free will in them. So we more say, okay, we're going to come down and do, ABC as a to-do list in a lifetime, and it's okay. If we choose to do something different in a lifetime, that's okay too. We just don't do it. We don't cross it off our to-do list, and then the next life we can do it if we choose to. So I love how they're very open-ended contracts there.
Yeah, so much space. Just like, yeah, this is what you said you were going to do. And if you do it, cool. And if you don't, cool. Like,
Yeah,
it's like, I feel a sense of relaxation
yes,
when I hear you talk
that's it.
about it in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why
Yeah.
it sounds scary saying contract, but they really said it's nothing like a human contract at all, right? Where two people are kind of locked into a contract. No, they said all contracts have free will. So that's why I see it, it literally is a to-do list. So because there's free will in everything, and not every moment and everything we do is set, um, they've shown me that there's no set future, that there's multiple different paths, that at any moment, any of us can decide to do something different, which can put us on a different path. And for myself, I've done that so many times in my life, not only when I chose to come down from my
Right.
NDE, um, also when I had my spiritual reawakening years later. And angels even said at this point, it's up in the air where they see I'm going, because I've changed things so often. But they said it's fine. Again, it's a to-do list. So I just, cross certain things off that I originally came to do, and I made a new to-do list, and they're like, that's fine. So I love that,
Yeah.
because it really takes, it's really kind of a breath of fresh air, knowing that we don't have to do anything. Um, so in terms of the future, yes, so there's no set future. We can change things at any moment. Even all of us as a society, they can see at any point where we might be headed, but at some point, some of us can make different decisions, and then we can start heading down another path. So that's pretty much how they explained it. So in my NDE, when the angel was saying, okay, well, what you're seeing is simply the future that we see right now is going to happen. But just like I made some different decisions, other people can make different decisions, and then society can kind of go over here. And then by the time I get to some of those events, the future can be different. So that's how I understand it.
Yeah. That's awesome. I just love that concept, because I know a lot of us we can feel like destined or doomed
Mm.
or trapped. And so, yeah, the space in that concept, just, it's like, we're free. We're really free. Even though we don't feel free, we are really free.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, you said spiritual reawakening. You had been talking to angels since you were 13, now you're 24, so that's like 11 years. So what was it like coming back to, like, your body after, you know, you kind of came back and answered the phone? What was that process like? Was it difficult to be here? Did you remember your experience, or did it take a while? What was that like?
Yes. So to be honest, that was a very, very difficult experience. So I came back, and the moment I got back into my body, I realized that I had basically remembered everything in my NDE, except when I remembered the part that I was looking at all these future visions, I suddenly had everything uh, like blurred out is the best I can explain it. Like, if you're ever watching a video and somebody blurs something out, so all of them are there. I know I'm looking at, you know, future visions, but all of them are blurred, so I can't see anymore what they're about. So I don't know who's involved, when's involved, what's involved, nothing. So they erased all the future visions that I had seen. So it was very difficult for me, because that was the only reason I stopped wanting to be in the unconditional love and light and stopped wanting to go up to heaven, which was my time, is so I can come back to help stop some of these events. And when I got back to my body, though, they didn't tell me that they would erase those. So that was the first difficult thing I needed to come to terms with, that I came back and then I felt I had no purpose because I didn't know what to do next. The second thing was I had a lot of health issues afterwards that I had to deal with. And I'll just sum it up as also for the next 6 months of my life, I kind of lost everything. I lost my health, I lost my job, I lost my apartment, I lost my family, I lost my friends, and trying to speak to others about having this near-death experience that I knew was real didn't go well, because no one was open to it. People didn't want anything to do with it. They thought I was crazy or made it up or just had a dream. So it was very difficult for the next while, I'll just say. But yes, I did remember everything about my NDE when I came back, except for all those things that were blurred out of future visions. And so I'll just say that at that point, I had made this decision in my life that I needed to just completely shut down my spirituality that I knew was real. But if no one else around me knew it was real and I had no resources or information about NDEs, then I didn't know where to go. So I just shut it down, pretended none of it existed, and I just didn't speak about it for the next 16 years. Is my story.
So I get that, because, you know, 20 years ago, these kinds of conversations were not as widespread as they were. I started my spiritual journey about 15-ish years ago, and I was looked at a little crazy, or I didn't talk about it because it wasn't safe to talk about it. So now I'm talking about it. So I completely get that. What was it that helped open you back up, like your spiritual reawakening? I'm curious about that experience and how that unfolded for you.
Yes. So right at the very beginning of 2021, I now look back and understood what happened. At the time, I had no idea what was going on. So I had to quit my job at the time, which is what I thought my passion was. I had worked with the homeless population for a decade. I had loved working with them. It meant a lot to me to do. However, the last year I was there, I ended up getting multiple pretty severe hip and back injuries, and they weren't healing. And even when they did, I kept getting re-injured. And so there was just a series of various things that happened the last year I was there. And I realized I just needed to quit because I needed to first physically heal and, you know, deal with everything and then figure out what I was going to do next. So I suddenly found myself, you know, for the first time in my life, in my 40s now, not working, had no idea what to do next if it wasn't, you know, what I thought my passion was. So I suddenly just said to the universe one day, you know, that's it. All these years I've wanted to open up to my spirituality again. I am ready completely to open up again. And angels, I don't know if you guys are still there. I haven't seen you, for all these years. I would love to have you come back. I even offered to help angels with whatever their biggest problems are that maybe a human like me can help them with. So I was just, making all these things so clear to the universe and had no idea what would come out of it. Little did I know that opened the floodgates of everything. Angels came back to me. I realized I could more start hearing their voices directly, which I didn't realize I could do. I started to have astral travels again, and this time I didn't realize I could do that at will. And so I started to have all these spiritual experiences right away. And they started to teach me more gave me more light messages and started to teach me more light lessons, and made it very clear that these messages weren't meant for me, that they were meant for everyone. And they told me how, I'm going to start doing talks, and I need to write a book, and I need to open up, my own spiritual business and all these things. And I was so overwhelmed. I had no idea, how any of this was going to work. But in any case, that was my giant spiritual reawakening. I even one day when I realized I can astral travel at will, I discovered I was in more like a cloud realm, so to speak. There was just clouds everywhere, and I almost was just floating on a cloud, it looked like. And there were these light beings just going by. And I said, "Hi, if you can see me, I'd like to talk to you." And they came by, and I realized that these were various angels, and they were each telling me about some different things they wanted me to do or learn about in life. And they were each talking to me, 4 of them at the exact same time though, and I was getting very overwhelmed because I didn't know how to process understanding these 4 voices at the same time in this realm. And I was about to leave because I was getting too overwhelmed. And right before I did, another light being had just shown up, and I didn't realize it was my grandfather. And he had grabbed my hand, and he had put one small little piece of silver light in it right as I opened my eyes and came out of the astral travel. And it was so beautiful to have, received a little gift from my grandfather. And then I didn't know what to do with it because it doesn't exist in this realm. It only exists in the astral realm. So the next time I was there, I took the little piece of silver light and I put it into my heart center because I thought, well, that's the the best place for to keep it safe. So that was the very overwhelming beginning to all my spiritual experiences after all those years.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many things that that I want to ask about. So you asked, basically. It was simple. It was as simple as just asking.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Where are you guys? And they came back right away. So they answered you.
Yeah.
And they told you you're gonna speak, which here you are, and write a book. So what is it like? What is life for you like now? Like, I know you're all over the place. I've seen you in many, many places. So what did you actually do with this information, and how do you use this? I'm not sure of the words that I would ask, but I guess to be of service, but I feel like it's a much higher mission that you're on. So I feel like saying being of service doesn't actually describe what you're doing, but it's much bigger than that. I can feel it. What is it that you're up to nowadays?
Yes. Yeah, I just see it that I'm, just another NDEer and spiritual experiencer. Because a lot of NDEers as well have the same thing, whether they're communicating with angels or guides or mediumship or astral travels or whatnot. So yeah, so I think it's just part of maybe being an NDEer.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. And So I think that, you know, here I was needing a purpose, which is part of the reason as well that I asked angels for one, right? That I had just finished my other purpose, which I thought was my life purpose, to keep working with the homeless population. And here I am saying to angels, I need a new purpose. And then they came and said, okay, this is your new purpose now. So it felt perfect, right, so to speak. And when I look back now, I can understand everything from a different perspective, where now I see it that my angels or my light team or whoever it was really wanted me to get off of the path that I was on to get back to spirituality after all these years. So now I see what had happened. So even though it was a, you know, difficult last year that I had gone through, I needed to completely take my focus off of where I was going down one path for me to be able to see that there were other doors and other possibilities open for me, but I just had no idea they were there until I completely took my focus off. So they needed to do something to really, you know, get me to do a U-turn. And that's what led me to have my spiritual experience. So now I see, okay, this makes sense. I get what happened now. So yeah, I just see that this is perfect. I have a purpose now, right? And I am trying to just pass along whatever beautiful light messages or teachings or experiences I have to others. And I'm happy that this is my purpose now. So yeah.
Did you write a book?
A couple of years ago, I tried writing a book. I had no idea what I was doing. I still have no idea what I was doing. So I got a little overwhelmed at one point and I put it aside. They keep bugging me about it. So at some point, I will figure out how to write one and get back to that project.
Got it.
And finish one day. But yes, they do keep giving me reminders here and there. So
Yeah.
I need to get back to it at some point, but there will be one day.
Got it.
Hopefully in the next couple of years.
You know, what I love about hearing your story is, you know, I have not had a near-death experience. And I know before we pressed record, you had mentioned another experience that you had where you didn't die. So you can't actually call it a near-death experience. So I did overdose, but I didn't die. And it was then, so that was 2012, that I really started to understand the truths of the universe. And I tried then kind of to, you know, build my spiritual business or my coaching business. And, you know, I had to get sober first. Like that was one thing. So I got sober in 2013. And just last year, December 15th, 2022, I lost my job. So I had been working in marketing in corporate America, and I had always had my coaching business on the side, leading people to, you know, their spiritual truths. And as soon as I got fired, I just saw the whole picture. I was like, okay, like I get, like I need to focus now solely on this and not on anything else. And then I also saw how much experience I needed in these past 10 years to really integrate, right? I had to get sober first. I had to really integrate. The way that you described your experience is very similar to mine. I'm curious if you can talk about that experience, the near-death like experience that you had as well.
Yes. I would love to speak about this experience, and I tend to get a little emotional during this one, so just in case it happens. So that first year after my spiritual awakening, so much had happened. Angels even had helped me on the astral realm release my childhood trauma. I even forgave my childhood abuser and wrapped him up in a blanket of love and sent him off into the light, and detached from the mental and emotional trauma that I had experienced my whole life from it. And afterwards, they taught me about energies and whatnot, and I learned to become an energy healer. So much happened in that first year, and I'm so thankful to my angels and my light team for it. And near the end of that first year, in October of 2021, I had my near-death-like experience. I went astral traveling one day, and God showed up. And God isn't a male or female, completely genderless, but just out of habit, I tend to say he. So forgive me for that if I tend to say that. But God showed up as a giant blue butterfly on the astral realm, and I was so happy and excited to see God. And on the astral realm, you can instantly manifest anything in front of you. You can instantly transform into anything. You can instantly travel anywhere, all just by thought and intention alone. So when I saw God was a giant blue butterfly, I transformed myself into a small little red one. And I wanted to go flying around the universe with God. And God was so sweet and did that with me. So I was just following God, flying around planets and nebula and whatnot, having the time of my life. And after a few minutes, God stopped and just kind of opened up his butterfly wings flat and said, "Get on my back." And my first thought was, as you know, a human, of thinking, oh, butterfly wings are so delicate, I don't want to hurt him. So here I said to God, okay, I'll climb on, but as long as that's not going to hurt you. And God said no. So I climbed onto his butterfly wings and I said, okay, I'm ready. And both of us instantly transported to some other realm. And when we did that, I was back in an ethereal version of my human self, and God just looked like a gigantic light being, just with a very vague bodily figure, so to speak. And where a face would be for someone, it was constantly shifting so quickly into the faces of people, of animals, and also shifting into plants, everything in nature, stars, planets, everything in the cosmos, also mandalas and shapes and numbers and everything you can think of, just constantly shifting in the universe. So I understood that these were all the many faces of God. And so God and I were standing there, and he had this big screen this time in front of me. So now he gave me another life review, but this time I didn't experience it like last time. I was just watching it on this gigantic screen he set up. However, God took out any negative experience that I ever had with anyone and only showed me my life chronologically of any time I was kind or helpful or generous in some way to others, and only showed me that. And by the time he got to the end of my life, I started to get emotional and overwhelmed because I didn't feel that I deserved to see that at all. And I told God, that wasn't my life. I'm nowhere near perfect, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've hurt people's feelings before. Where are all those things? Put them back in. And God said, that is of no concern to me. I want you to see how kind you are. Look at how your kindness has affected others. So he showed me a few things on the screen. And then when that was finished, I then just saw an image of myself on the screen. And for some reason behind me, there was this plaque that had a few rows of butterflies on it. And I suddenly saw myself on the screen just laughing and giggling and was so happy. And that me looked like I suddenly had this huge swarm of mini butterflies that I think looked like it came out of the top of my head or maybe from behind me and just went up and swarmed everywhere all around me. I was just laughing and giggling with all these butterflies. And God looked at me and said, see, you were always meant to be a butterfly one day. And that is when I burst out crying because I was so overwhelmed, because I felt so extremely undeserving of all of it. Here I am for no reason, just there with God. And God's only showing me all the nice things I did in my life. God's telling me I was always meant to be a butterfly, and I just didn't know how to process all that or feel worthy of all that. So I just was crying. And God saw that I didn't know how to process this in the moment. So God did the sweetest thing that a parent can do. And God switched us back into butterflies again and wanted me to follow him now in this tropical rainforest realm. And I was following him, and he took me to this beautiful waterfall. And right in front of the waterfall, there was this huge rainbow that came right down the front of it. But this rainbow we were able to go into, and we took turns going into the rainbow and flapping our wings as butterflies and going up and down. And the rainbow was unconditional love again, and just pure bliss. And once again, it just filled me up and just encompassed me and embedded into the fabric of me. And I felt so thankful and so grateful, and thank God for allowing me just to be in that unconditional love once again. Then God wanted me to follow him to behind the waterfall. So we flew there still as butterflies, and there was this cutout in the rocks right behind there, and we landed on the edges of it. And I looked inside, and there were all these other gigantic butterflies, God size, inside. And they each had these intricate designs and colors, some that I've never seen before. They were all so gorgeous. And to me, it looked like a secret butterfly clubhouse. And I understood that these were all ascended masters in butterfly form. And God said to me, go to them. And I got really nervous. So I flew in, and I aimed to land in an area that looked like I'd have the most space to not disturb them. So I landed, but when I did, just the very tip of my wing brushed the tip of a wing of a mostly purple butterfly. And then me and that butterfly transported again to some other area or realm. And I transformed back into my ethereal human-looking self again. And that butterfly transformed into Ganesh, a Hindu god with the head of an elephant, who had the most joyous, happy, fun-loving energy to him. So I felt so blessed to be in his presence. And he basically just taught me two lessons that were more relevant to me in my life, especially since I had almost become a hermit for quite a few years and barely knew anyone. So he was really trying to show me how important it was to both get out there more and to make new connections with people. And he also was letting me know how important it is that us, that older souls like myself, teach others in the world and teach younger souls about different spiritual teachings and lessons and truths that the light has given me, because I understood that's all part of the process as well, that older souls take care of younger souls. Just like in my, or before my NDE, when I saw I was going to be a guide, I understood that that's how it works. The older we get as souls, the more that we are then guides for the younger souls to help them along the way, along their path. So it's a very fair process, I see, of how we all can take care of each other. So after Ganesh showed me these teachings, I thanked him, and everything just felt like it dissolved away. And this time I at least gently ended up back in my body instead of crashing back into it like last time. And that was the end of that experience.
Gently. I love that. It gently dissolved and you were back.
Yeah.
Without it being so intense.
Yeah.
But I just think that is so fascinating, and it's interesting because just all the little pieces of your story butterflies, rainbows, waterfalls, Ganesh.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with elephants. Like just all of it. It's like, wow, like I've I've always been connected to these things in some way. And as I get older, I realize, oh, my connection to these things are actually something deeper that I had no idea when I was a kid, or, that can't be explained. So thank you
Mm,
so much for sharing, like, just everything. You're such a kind soul. I can feel your gentleness and your kindness when you're sharing about how God was telling you, I want you to see how kind you are. Like, that's all I
mm,
feel from you.
yeah.
And so I appreciate you now getting out there, putting yourself out there, and being on the show today. I do ask all my guests 3 questions. So before we go there, I'd love to know if there's anything else that you feel led to share today.
Uh, no, that's it. Thank you so much for all your kind words there. I really appreciate it, Christina, and for being on your show. I appreciate it as well. But yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, then the 3 questions I have for you, we'll go there now. So the
Sure.
first question that I ask all my guests is, how would you define or describe God?
Mm, yes. Um, so how I understand God is everything. God's the embodiment of unconditional love, which emits bright light, and God is also an energy, and unconditional love is the highest frequency energy that we can that anyone can vibrate at, and God is also consciousness. So, since God created everything in the entire universe out of Him herself, everything has consciousness. And we're all equivalent to, the way I see it, tiny atoms, all living in God's giant body of all the universes and realms together. So, what we think of as a separate entity of God is simply the highest functioning infinite heart and mind of God, since we're all tiny atoms inside of God, and we're all God together.
I love that answer. Thank you so much. The next question I ask all my guests is, what would you say is the purpose of life?
Mm, yes. Um, so there were only a few times I ever had some direct uh, communication with God, source, whatever you wish to call him or her. But it was interesting. I asked once, God, how many meanings of life are there? And God said, there are well over 10,000 meanings of life, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. There was that many. I was very excited about this. And in the end, even with a lot of different teachings angels gave me, I probably only know a couple dozen of them. So I love how down here we really just know that the tip of the iceberg of all the wonderful meanings that are out there. And some of the main meanings, though, that I've understood from the light is that we're all learning to eventually, over thousands of lifetimes, on each our unique path through our free will choices, we're all going to eventually relearn to become the highest level of consciousness and the highest level of learning, to admit only the frequency of unconditional love towards all others and towards ourselves. And that's equivalent to each of us becoming an ascended master one day, which I think is what God was trying, or one of the many things God was showing me in the ND-like experience, when he said, I was always meant to be a butterfly one day. I think it's that we're all meant to be butterflies one day, as ascended masters. And a few other things for meanings of life is everything down here is an illusion down here in the material realm. Underneath, we're all equal pieces of love and of light and of God, and we're all one. So part of it they showed me is, if we can learn to close our human eyes and see with our soul eyes that we all are beautiful pieces of God and love and light, and all one, will want to come together as one people so that we can all strive towards world peace together, which I understand is one of the more global things that we're all coming down to eventually do together to get there.
Wow, that was so beautiful. I loved hearing that. Like, we're all supposed to, well, I'll get to the ascended master level. And yeah, I just love hearing you talk. So it's just validating so many things that, you know, I've learned through experience, but also like reading, and it's like, wow, like, I don't know, I just love it all coming together. So the final question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and offer it to a younger version of yourself, what would that one piece of wisdom be?
Yes. So that would definitely be to tell myself there is nothing to fear and there's nothing to worry about at all, especially since my entire life up until I was in my 40s and then had my spiritual awakening and was able to learn how to heal from my past and my trauma. I was afraid of everything and everyone all the time and constantly worried about everything. So it would be just to say there's nothing to fear at all in life. There's no death. We're eternal beings. We're never judged. There's no hell-like place that we're ever thrown into if we're ever bad or anything like that. Just everything is okay. So just relax and breathe and just be yourself. Everything will be okay.
Thank you. That is the overall tone I got from this interview, is that we can just relax and be calm.
Yes. Yes, all is well. Something angels always tell me, all is well.
Right.
So I'm always like, okay, good. Yes, I got to remember that. All is well.
Perfect. Where do people find you?
Yes. So I have a website, which is lovelightenergyhealing.ca. Or if anyone would like to email me, I always love to hear from people. It is Nadine at lovelightenergyhealing.ca.
I'll be sure to include that information in the description of this video. So again, thank you so much for being you and for sharing your experiences and your knowledge and your wisdom and your heart and your light with the world. It has been so fun to be in this conversation with you, and I'm just so honored that I was able to have this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christina. You're such a sweetheart. And I, again, really appreciate being on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me, or I wouldn't have been here. So that's wonderful. And I wish you all the best on your beautiful journey as well.
Oh, thank you. You too. I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.